during the live and during the replay. It's going to be a short one. It is, after all, a holiday. Well, celebratory for those who celebrate Mother's Day, and for those who don't like celebrations, it's a Sunday. So depending where you're coming in from, happy Sunday. I was thinking about how to talk about the self. So we all today know about the body and how we will consistently, in fact, perceive the world from our senses. So I'm not going to bring in too much of the attachment trauma education lens, but I am going to bring it in when the nervous system is wielded by you with curiosity. That's where you're going to recognize these 5 things that I know I experienced as I was growing up. I'm 46, so when I say grown up, I'm talking about your childhood, adolescent years, so it's with your primary family and then with peers. And so, number 1, no one has ever silenced you, nor will they ever. Oh, and before I continue, so when I say you will not have lost yourself, it means the self of you from the embodied brain's perspective. I want to make sure that's understood. So my brain doesn't go in alert, or if it does, like when I have panic attacks, I'm able to bring down my hood. Dr. Daniel Siegel's hand model. So those are embodied self-leaders, the ones who use the mindset practices and the journal prompts, which you find on PayHip, the correct way. But I don't want to say that it's correct. I want to say that the 3D, 4D collective, because as you all know, the regulars, I'm a 5D mystic, the 5D frequency, it's this blissful state, which is the flow state. So when you go with the flow, it's because you use the inner growth mindset, left and right work together, and you can hug yourself, and from within, you're able to stay centered and not get destabilized by your own activation. Okay, so that's why as you're growing up, you'll notice, so I was broken free from number 2. No, it's not number 2, it's actually number 5. You're broken free from affective realism, those really strong emotions that make you think that the thoughts you're having are facts. Like this guy who says, I want to word that is right, that feels right. And I'm like, dude, you're all feels. And he's a cynic. So the 5D mystic in the Enlightenment Soul age group who's in the forefront here, yes, it's very fun. You do not have to go away for 20 years somewhere or do any of our ancestors' traditional methodologies to achieve that which is enlightenment. I like to integrate the spiritual stuff. But I do want to share the tidbit, resilience and doing it with the good nervous system means that you get funnier by the minute. The ones who pretend to know it because it's now a word that's part of our day-to-day, they clearly will not be able to be funny bones. So we'll get to that maybe later. But number 2, you will notice that when things go wrong, you don't think God cursed you, the devil cursed you, demons curse you, the world's going to hell because humans are sucky, yucky, all of that. So again, as a child, growing up, I'm just letting you know, when you grow up with a steady self, which means you don't lose your identity, so you stay with the higher self integrated, and that means you can self-regulate. Okay, so by the time I was 8, I was broken free from affective realism because I got disowned by my very own identical twin. I still remember the feeling, and that's an explicit memory. As for the implicit memory, the first 3 years of your life, which is why everything matters to you. So you will feel first. And that's the part of where when you don't lose yourself as you're growing up, you don't use your name, I'm going to use mine. And that's why with integrity, it's easy to maintain it. But again, you're not enmeshing and you're not confused because you have a very steady self-agency here in front of you. And so this self-agency is able to act with the ventral vagal state and to clear those who are around me and to also speak, even though as a kid, obviously I was emotionally immature like anybody else. Still working through my 16-year-old's irritation, the fight response with the peers. They're not peers anymore now that I'm a grown-up, but that's the whole point. You'll recognize the aspects that come up for you once you're past your mid-20s is when the frontal lobes and that prefrontal cortex, I believe, continues to be in the lead. Or anyway, something like that. I get the data wrong. But, okay, so number 1, as you grow up without losing the self, the identity and belonging, you belong to your own body easily and to your own immediate family. No one has silenced you, nor will they ever. So that's with peers or family. You don't feel silence. So for example, on today, this beautiful holiday, I saw some people, obviously, that are still affected by their herd, feel that celebrating mothers by saying they do the best they can. And I've heard this before when someone's really upset, because we do have those who are dysregulated and they are therefore emotionally immature parental figures, and they will say, saying they did the best they can, they don't say it feels like, so they're not distinguishing their affective realism, their very strong feelings, and the way that they're upset and still grieving what was not given to them. It will say, saying these words silences and shuts us up. And so that sentence, or I read it on a Substack newsletter, and I'm like, it's not how I feel. And that's when I remember life is subjective. So subjective reality exists, for we feel the world differently. We may use the same words, but it will be completely different. And so you will respect someone who feels wronged, but that doesn't mean that I feel the same way about the exact phrase, because in my case, not losing myself, my identity or belonging, means my higher self and the healthy boundaries around me I don't feel like I'm being pushed around. And here's where with my twin, when I got disowned, because I'm the bossy one of the two. And so that's the part of where our environment, our circumstances, those things affect anyone. So when you have a strong self, and I didn't want to use that word in and of itself, because everyone is going to be strong at there's your 1, at their 2, at their 3, whatever they go through in their codependent years. And that's the people that I will always remember, even though they might irritate me, the 3D, 4D brothers and sisters of mine, those who suffer life and continue dysregulating and bringing their chaos and rigidity to our world. They're not evil in the way that others will want to continue using that label from our philosophical and religious textbooks. My left brain has an explanation from sciences. My right brain has a heart that works, and I have seen, since as a kid, that which is dysregulation take place. I actually didn't have all the attachment trauma education. I had good Christian Catholic catechists to raise me and my self-agency. And with God, I still, as he accompanies me, so does Jesus. And Buddha makes fun of me sometimes. High five, Buddha. But that's because I waste some of my time making fun of that which I need not. So 5D mystic here, in case. I did include in the title so you all can have awareness of that. But we'll be talking about the 5D collective a little bit more. It's not a special group. It's simply people who will choose to become their full and real self. And that's why with mindset practices, you grow yourself. As you distinguish, okay, I have some really strong emotions, whether you call it affective realism or my child parts or stuff's coming up, it's my opinion. Someone can feel silenced with the words they did the best they can. Some of us don't feel silenced. We say that's a phrase that we'll know, and we want to acknowledge that every one of us makes mistakes. So that's called, I can be a functional inner child adult. Terrell says functional adult. I'll do functional child adult because my child parts are all here. And I'll say I'm flawed and imperfect. I could make a big, huge mistake. This is the timber, and this is the heart of humility. So Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, to me, this is what was taught. And people who are not capable of achieving that level of compassion, they're not because they're not capable, it's that there's still resentment and suffering and sadness. So that's the part. You don't speed up a process of healing for anyone, but to make it a blanket statement that saying the best you can is silencing everyone. No, it's a phrase that brings with it effective realism for those who will have felt, and they deserve to do their journey, and to then for us to hear them as we want to deservingly hear other sides as well, which is one of the things we're right now looking as a community to, I think, bring, at least I know I am trying to bring it to YouTube and TikTok and all the places where what I see is a number of validating, emotionally immature, epistemically lazy, and charged people continuing to use their hooks. Anyway, so what's the difference when you grow up without losing yourself, your identity, belonging? So my identity is Maria. My belonging is I belong to the human herd, and myself is all here with my child parts. And so with self-regulation skills, since as a kid, I was able to get awakened from this really strong feeling that it's a fact. Oh, I was disowned. I wasn't disowned. To accept rejection and then to continue moving forward with my first long-term relationship. They're all important. So, and actually all relationships in general are important, not only one that can be two individuals, or if you have our polyamory community, have a dynamic continuing to lead themselves to a fulfilling life of love and depth and connection. And that's where it's amazing to be able to not have any level of insecurity And FYI, I'm bicultural. This is a funny one. Jealous. I'm not a jealous person. In fact, the polyamory community, when I read that some have 1, 2, 3s, I'm like, wow, that's really not necessary. You're objectifying people. That's like, they're all people. You can't give a number. I mean, if you do, you can, I guess, but that's, wow. So anyways, that's a side note, but my point is I've never been jealous even before understanding that we have monoamory and polyamory community. And now today I know that we already had them way back when. So it really isn't that big of a deal. But I forget, I got to go to college. I have a master's degree in international relations and diplomacy. I got to travel. I'm bicultural. And I have traveled only parts of the world, but I've traveled. So I will have been opened up to more. Okay, so in all of this being opened up to more, I've never lost my identity or my belonging or myself. And in fact, the words that people use to describe themselves, if they cling on to them like an identity and then they don't know how to work with other words, this is where there's a difference that I've noticed. So bilateral, vertical, overall integrated brain, embodied self-leaders, they don't lose themselves. Self-sovereign people, it's like I have all these experiences, so I'm adding words as I continue moving forward. I'm not changing myself, I'm a verb. As Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about the selves as verbs, and in fact the states of self, you'll notice too, because I definitely can tell when my other charges, my child parts come up. So no one ever silences you, you don't feel silenced, number 1. 2, when things go wrong, you don't think someone cursed me, devil, demon, something's going, I need to go and talk to God about punishment or anything like that. The world is weighing me down. Okay, so as you get older, this is why you don't need a resilience program, but instead you enjoy a community of people who with their own eustress, so that means the ventral vagal state, we support each other. And then we get to also allow that which is a exploration over concepts that are important to us. Or, for example, completely different opposing quote-unquote views. Someone saying, nope, I will have felt completely silenced. I don't like that term. They did the best they can. And I'll be like, well, I understand it. I have a different feeling because they all did the best they can. They are ignorant. Hi. They were ignorant. Not, well, some are still ignorant. So number 3, you don't struggle in the way of those who suffer feelings and aka dysregulate. When I was going through the teenager boyfriend thing, my first serious long-term relationship, he cheated throughout the years, 3 years. And I remember being that teenager. So fast forward, twin flame 1, twin flame 2, twin flame 3, I can tell you that none of any of those breakups or misalignments were destructive to the point of me thinking I was unworthy or that I had done something wrong or that there was some big manipulative stuff trying to get in between me and my twin flame and twin flames, like what I saw that became of the twin flame stuff. Thank you, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. I never actually was very happy to see what they did to the whole twin flame connection because it's about, well, I'm going to leave that alone. But the point is, if you're not a person who can securely attach and self-regulate and therefore understand that things can go wrong in relationships and to move forward from it, I have people that I've known and they actually are still suffering that entire connection. And as a person who's experienced it, I try to be, of course, of support. They will have come to me, and all the time when I speak to them and say, look, your free will choice and what you're being asked to do is to continue moving towards your fulfilled life. And the suffering is about you being able to think something through, but processing that charge. This is where when a Zen master out there talks about laundry, he says you can't achieve enlightenment because of laundry. What he's trying to say is when you cry, and I'm saying, okay, yeah, we cry, but some of us don't have this rumination. And so this part is very important. Alert, alert. If you're ruminating, you're really just going through the motions. So mindset practices won't help you. Journaling won't help you because you're not actually just sitting with the sadness and then allowing yourself to not give it a story, but just to sit and know things happen in life. Human secondary consciousness. And so this is the part of where when you don't lose yourself, you're able to use that prefrontal cortex so you can sit in neutrality with the very strong emotion, whether it's sadness or anger or fear or lovely prefrontal is what I point to, but even though it might not be there. But the point is you're able to, like with panic attacks, expand your window of welcome. So you don't need a resilience program. You know how to ground yourself, stay connected, stay present, and with the support of yourself and a good system, you continue growing. So as a teenager, the teenage boyfriend thing didn't destabilize me. Twin flames didn't destabilize me. I got to go through that, which was, in fact, and still is, the enlightenment journey, the awakening journey, the ascension journey. I will put spiritual growth with personal growth because they go together. And those who instead think you need to reprogram something, I'm like, you're not a computer, and you actively, a person objectifying their journey will distance themselves from the practice of self-regulation, because you got a story as you are telling yourself something versus simply put using that human secondary consciousness, which here is that 8th and 9th chakra expansion, for example. Because being able to sit in that unknown, I'm activated but I have no answer, I can sit, I can breathe. You don't need yoga, but you do need to know self-regulation skills. And some people don't know them. So they will be, like Dr. Amy Apigan points out, she has the biology podcast, the trauma biology podcast. I'm talking, she will talk, she's explained it, one of her videos. You can look her up. And I was watching it, I'm like, wow, yeah, that's for sure. I've seen people talk about resilience, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, mindset, all of the same topics I do. And I can tell they don't know how to self-regulate because their frequency is low, their body, just the way they're going about it. The dark sides of neuroplasticity is not pretty. So she explains why it's bad. And it's basically they haven't worked to get out of that pattern of their fight, flight, whatever's going on within their defense mechanism, which goes all the way back to when you're that first year of life matters. So moving forward though, again, I'm going to reiterate for the new lovely viewers. So what's the difference when you grow up without losing yourself? So 5 things that you would be able to say, yeah, as I was a kid growing up, I could tell about the effective realism. So the very strong emotions don't make you think that your thoughts are facts. But instead, you just know that you feel very strongly. So with a good support system, you get to work with that. If you're alone, you get to journal and or sit with it. Doesn't make it better. You just don't make it worse. And once you get past the courage and strength, because that's what open-ended inquiry does, forces the body that you're practicing. That's training the mind. But that's because you have an integrated brain. So this is where it's a practice that can be applied when you have the capacity to know what comes up. And so for me, like when I'm still irritated by those who out there are filling our social media, and they were already filling the world with their mannerisms, the fear-based leaders, but now we get to see it on social media. And so I just remind myself to pause and to work with that, which is my peers, untrustworthy, risk takers, stupid, not wanting to learn, and I'm talking about teenagers, all liars, all cowards, and yada, yada, yada. And then I'm reminding myself in the prefrontal, okay, that was when you were a teenager. Presently speaking, you're a grown woman, and all of those grown-ups are grown too, and the kids are actually way more emotionally aware. They're more self-regulating thanks to the attachment trauma educators and the good therapists out there. So I know that the future, as always, will look brighter. And the ones who think it won't, they're the ones who don't trust our own species. And that's probably because of their, not capacity to notice the way you feel world out there. I went to well, but it is right, it feels right. Dude, you're all feels. Cynic who's breaking up people apart. It isn't even that. He's trying to create awareness. It's the way he's going about it. I could point out to every person that I've made fun of throughout the years of the podcasts on YouTube and on Spotify. If you're new, you don't know, but I make fun of a number of people who are praised by individuals. I don't point them out because there's no need to. Plus, they are leaders to those people who follow them. They have a home. So like Peter Pan gives the Lost Boys a home and then they follow Wendy around. But also, I'm not going to make it into that big of a deal where I am the one who knows more than they do, because that's not the case. And also because they're people. And I won't dehumanize them like the flat earthers. They're a group of people. They came together. Do I think they could use their brain for something different? Yes, I do. In the meantime, they found each other. So you allow yourself to remember that subjective reality. I feel the world all the time. It's really irritating to continuously find, whether they're experts or just random podcast hosts, talking about people as if we all don't know how to use our brain with inner growth. I've never once argued with myself in a way of like being mean to myself. I haven't looked ever out there and said, oh, there's a Lucifer monster. No, in fact, actually, like, there's no monster. There's a bunch of suffering people who continue to bring us shit because they haven't healed themselves. It's so obvious. It's not even funny how obvious it is. And so that's what it feels like when you haven't lost yourself since you're a kid. Put to the side if you don't believe in God. I feel very blessed and I am in communion. So I can't say differently. And I'm really just thinking about people who, within the scientific community, some they respect all, and that's nice. And then I think of the ones who want to say that our experiences are fake or that they're not real, which I can also accept. I'm very grounded in reality. With Sam Harris's quote, charitable beliefs can be falsifiable, and that's the logical left brain with the right. And so being able to be at ease with, I don't need to prove spirituality or my channeling or downloads or the experiences. I can accept that science has explanations for me for my religious experiences. I can accept that some will want to say it's a virtual reality. I can accept everything because it doesn't send my embodied brain into a, you're taking my identity away. I'm like, oh, look, a bunch of people with knowledge. How amazing. And that's what the curious, the left, stays a fascinated child. Doesn't become a delusional idiot. I have a book. I don't have it with me anymore, but it's the left and the right brain. It's amazing. And you're not your indulging parent when you're yourself. You're just yourself. So, one, no one has ever silenced you, and no one will ever. In fact, people still tease me about my loud voice as a 46-year-old woman. And the ones who particularly don't have a loud voice. You're so loud. Yeah, I am. I'm outspoken. Sometimes I say things. You should really not say things. I'm sorry. I don't control. I'm like a 3-year-old. I just, I try. But number two, when things go wrong, you don't blame. No monster, nothing like that. You do understand life is. What is it called? There was a song that was going to pop in my head. Anyways. 3, you don't struggle in the way of those who suffer feelings, so you don't dysregulate. You have a nice window of welcome to your emotional plane. The panic attacks for me were the most uncomfortable of experiences, but I do better now when they happen. Still irritating when they happen, but they don't happen to that same extent, actually, so that's nice. Number 4, no one is out to get you. So yeah, the whole twin flame thing, no one's stopping them from being with you. Like, this is such an interesting, actually, experience. What I can tell you is it's just sad that people have taken that which is something so sacred and made it into what has now made groupies out of each other. But I'm gonna again try to remind myself everyone has a different journey. And 5, as I said, you're broken free from affective realism. And so activation is noticed. It does not move you off your center, though. You know how upset you are, and then you use your words. This is what emotionally mature people do. And even if you are an adolescent, you'll know how to do this. And so I will use the teenager after the first time he cheated. I said, look, I told you already that I'm not jealous, and we were friends way before we got into a relationship. So I said, this happened, you told me, I'm not going to do what our friends did, I'm not checking your phone, I'm not going to stop you from going out and doing things. And this is the part of where, for the culture, part of the people that are in Italy, not all, the jealous thing is important because it would mean that you love them. And I'm like, that's not love. Love is that I will be happy for you even if you are not with me, because I want you to be fulfilled in life. So to actually add that tidbit at the end of our lovely episode, if you love, I'm going to say unconditionally loving with flaws and imperfections. That's what love is. If I need to bring it to our nervous system, I'm going to say integrated brains, the ones who own their higher self. And so with training of the mind, that's why you're curious. You've passed the courage and the strength part of dealing with emotions. So if there's one thing I'm going to try and do the episodes on that are going to accompany the journal prompts and mindset practices, the bundles and the singular products that I have out there on PayHip, is to have that in your forefront, because struggle and courage keep people in this fight response. Curiosity, having fun with things that happen, not because you're having fun and laughing about it, but you're curious about it. So, example, again, the panic attacks. Or I can even use 3 days prior to beginning a nutritionist diet. I kid you not, my left. I don't want to do the diet. I don't want to do the diet. By the third day, what arose in my body was curiosity, intrigue, that's the word. And I looked over, obviously in my head, meaning, like when you're like doing this. And I'm like, we're doing the diet. And I was but it wasn't like, we're doing it. So as you move into this comfortableness with your authentic self, all your child parts, in my case, I call them child parts, states of self, but they're all here. And the last part that I've been working with our lovely community is the realization of being still very irritated with those peers from when I was 11, 12, 13, 14. As you will remember, I don't know about you, but I remember all these kids just being mean to each other for no other reason except for they were hiding their vulnerability. And I'm like, would you stop? I'm like, what are you doing? Today, as a grown woman with all the attachment trauma education, I now know that I'm lucky. I have self-agency in the forefront. And so by being able to maintain steadiness, even when I was in that presence of the 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, those years, I simply learned I can trust myself to make the wise decisions. The grown-ups dare not to do drugs, not to do bad things, right? Then there was another program, I'm forgetting, sex ed, obviously. So I remember learning from my school the appropriate and right things, no extremes. Okay, so hi. And so when you're lucky to have yourself, not lose yourself at that adolescent year, which is when you choose your next style of parenting crew. So when we look at how the brain develops, that's why attachment trauma educators with my lens, interpersonal neurobiology lens, the polyvagal lens, anyone who is ready to use journal prompts and mindset practices in the way of curiosity, they're going to have fun. Not only, for example, with the channel, but just with life. And it's not because of ignoring what's happening. It's because we're capable of, if you're informed, then you will know what a pathology looks like, because they actively are just, it's not, I don't even know how. When I got the 0-8-year-old non-metabolized trauma time from Pat Ogden, I'm like, yep, I'm seeing it. So as a grown woman with all these pieces of information, I look out in the world and I know that there are bountiful people who could be brought to their best if only they took that which was their personal responsibility seriously. But because they think they know what they're doing, and so here's where Bessel van der Kolk explains very well how dysregulated people don't know they're dysregulating. And now that we have in our acumen, our language, the emotion intelligence, people just like to use it. It's like a little medal of, I'm an emotionally intelligent. And if I see them being emotionally mature, I'm like, you're still struggling. So the open-ended inquiry, moving from struggle to courage. I've spotted that into curiosity, like the Zen master who says, no one can be enlightened. We have laundry. You can't cry without, hold on, my battery's dying. You can't cry, Zen master, without actually noticing yourself. So, what I'm trying to get at is the capacity to train your mind is simple once you've gotten the basic explanation. Let me see if I have some notes that I could use to talk to you about that. But what is most important is that as you are upset, whether it's sadness or anger or surprise, happiness, disgust, those basic human emotions, that's one part of it. But then for the child parts, things that have taken place in your life, when you have very strong emotions. So the guy who's like, I want it to be a world that's about what is right, not what feels right, he's thinking, because we're all talking about subjective reality and feelings, that people who are talking about this don't know what they're talking about. Instead, he's simply ignorant and or doesn't believe in the attachment trauma explanation. And while they don't have the quantitative data analysis for a 100% proof of that's where the rebuttals, the argumentation comes into the mix, what I have noticed is that mindful therapists in the entire good therapy community that I learned from, they have results from people who go to them. And also your body knows its own optimized the beauty of the body. So the divine empowered feminine is the body. That's what I call it when she self-regulates. So when you can self-regulate yourself, and the empowered divine masculine is the integrated brain. So I look forward to bringing these different aspects to you, but as I don't want to get too distracted, I'm going to repeat those 5 things that you'll notice if you grew up with yourself. So you didn't lose yourself, you didn't lose your identity, you didn't lose your belonging. No one will have ever silenced you, so you will have never felt that you were silenced. Number 1, when things have gone wrong, you haven't thought, someone's cursed me, shit's going down. You haven't had someone to blame. You are aware that life comes with challenges. So there's no evil, the demon, any conspiracy stories, you name it. For the spiritual collective community, I want to just share, for me, moving into becoming a mystic wasn't something I thought would happen, because I had heard of spiritual gifts and the saints and all of the stories. I didn't think I'd be channeling or downloading. When it started to happen, I was like, oh wow, that's, cool. Hey God, so listen, I'm rejected by a group of people who don't like that we bring it all in. And I actually got confirmed that I am rejected. And I have welcomed that, because I don't really want to be with those who think God doesn't need science. We know he doesn't. The fact that you actually think if we bring it all in, it's bad JoJo tells me that, well, school. That's the left brain, by the way. The left brain doesn't handle when everything comes together, which is why if I have an impaired bilateral, meaning a person who's non-bilaterally integrated, I'm not going to take them seriously, because what I have in front of me now is an adaptive child part. It means I have core wounds, haven't healed it, and their effective realism, their strong charges, are what they think are facts. And so now I just want to be the person who can welcome their opinion, because we all have subjective opinions, and respectfully allow them to share and then move forward. Okay, so that also as a teenager it happened, FYI. So number 3, you don't struggle in a way of those who want somebody to say, oh, you did a great job. Oh, you're so amazing. Or basically, if someone says, I don't agree with you, where there are those who will be like, how dare you? As you grow up, you become more mature and you're capable of dealing with, so for example, on one of the subreddit groups that I hang out, I do a lot of trying to support communities. This one's emotional intelligence. It's a 25 or 27-year-old, and they came in and were asking about how to handle this date that went well, in my opinion, but both were very emotionally vulnerable, and she came out drained. But the way she described it all, I'm like, that's not a bad thing. That's where we are. So from your 11 to 25, your adolescent brain and your adolescent essence. Then from 25, at least for what I remember, the women, biologically, their frontal lobes are finished developing. For the men, I believe it's 28. And so long story short, we will have those beginnings of situations where we're frazzled. So being drained makes sense if you're emotionally vulnerable, and they had all these deep conversations, you're all like, it's all being scared. It's like with panic attacks, it'd take me a little while to feel regenerated. Sometimes I'd have to sleep, longer than the 8 hours, because my body was tired. So when trauma charges come up and they release, that actually is something that happens. So again, you don't need a resilience program once you are a person who's embodying your self-leadership, just so that we can, for those of you who are new, I talk about those who are ready to be curious, to continue building resilience, to continue building it because you're doing the good resilience, not because you're pretending to, and being a part of groups. So with the 4D collective and 3D, I see their channels, their downloads, and some of the messages they bring forth, and I, a long time ago, said to myself, I think you've been through this before. Now, besides my past lives, I also today can say what I meant was, this has happened as I had began ascending and expanding myself and coming across the spiritual information in the timeline. I had a hunch. That's what I meant. But, so number 3, we don't struggle in the way of those who want to be validated. We understand emotional immaturity, you grow mature, and you stay steady even when activated, and so you don't fall off. Those who are still struggling with let me get myself back up, they still can appreciate the journal prompts and mindset practices and hearing about how amazing it is once you get over the hump. But if they're irritated by it, they're making a choice. And that means that's how you felt. You're going to want to voice that. I get it. I can be irritated too, but come to be conscious of that's your opportunity to, I'm very frustrated and irritated. That's okay. It's not good or bad. It happens. And then to have the healthy people around you, because connection, so support system, and actively, it doesn't matter if you have the same opinions or not. That's not what connection is, where we unconsciously love each other with our flaws, with our patterns, with all of that. For no one is out to get you. Now this one is particularly interesting, when someone always thinks someone is out to get them, or that the entire system is going to oppress you. And this is just something very sad to continuously see, because the dark sides of neuroplasticity, you eventually shut yourself. So with flat earthers, they isolate, right? They're not going to hang out with all of us. And then we have some who become fanatics and extremes. And number 5, effective realism, strong emotions. You're able to be aware of them. So when you're activated, you notice it, whether there's strong emotions or something else is going on, and you work with yourself because you want to. So we don't want to bring in our mood in a room, but we can understand that there can be times where you're going to be moody, but you don't allow yourself to disregard the behavior. Now that's where the motivation depends on if you want to become the best version of yourself in this, what I call functional or child adult way. And that's why that's such a small sweet spot. The courage, strength, not moving completely over to curiosity. Someone saying, saying parents and mothers do the best they can is silencing all of this group. I'd say that some feel silence because they're really still upset and resenting all these people who are parents who are not doing the emotional mature stuff, but they're forgetting that they're human. So they're dehumanize them through irritation. In fact, here's a journal prompt for those who want to work with anything that is irritating you. How does my irritation or judgment block me from being of service or support, or you can change some words, of course, to others, to myself, to society, to human evolution, and to inspire human potential? That one is very important, because when we get irritated, we will tend to generalize, and then we have closed mind, and it's in a way of likes and dislikes. And so you are going to validate what is that 16-year-old. So by validating a fight response, you're not going to grow from it. Eventually you stagnate in this little wheel, which for those who feel their energy, so I noticed something was off, my voice, the topics, all of it. I was like, what is it? Then I also got nudged by God, because this is the part of where I am motivated to become that best and more expanded version. But sometimes I just tend to make fun of 4D, 3D too much. And I got into that habit. So little nudges, they support us. That's the other part. So adding a bonus. If you stay yourself, and whether it's life or God, however you want to put it, you're able to notice the nudges that life sends you. And then you're able to easily stay on track towards more emotional intelligence, more resilience, more blissfulness. And then you're going to continue meeting those who are breathtaking. And that's men and women. So there's 3 pillars of mind training that I heard from Dr. Daniel Siegel. And we all put them into practice if you are using mindset and journaling at this time, and you're past the need to be given grounding, connection, and present techniques. So you're familiar with, okay, when I'm activated, I can pause, and I have 5 things I get to do, however it is that you will know your process. So like if it's a panic attack or if it's an anxiety, you know that you're going to have more sleep that you need. Maybe you like to visualize, maybe you like to journal, maybe it's a bath, maybe it's a dinner, maybe it's a lunch, maybe it's a phone call added to the rest. And focused attention. So I always found this one funny, because anyone can redirect their attention, but then I forgot that's not true. The ones who have inner critic, outer critic, drinking, drugging, fucking, binge eating, binge whatever, escaping reality with the whole, what do they call it? Scrolling, doom scrolling, whatever. And so these other mannerisms, I don't know them because I don't need to escape reality. And when someone says that, I'm like, okay, you obviously need a good therapist so you can expand your window of tolerance, because if you want to escape, that means you're overwhelmed. But so focusing attention, to me, it's pretty straightforward, because I can wield my nervous system, so I can wield my mind, because I'm wielding 2 sides of the brain. Without my left and right, they work usually together, but when you're not bilaterally, vertically, and fully integrated with awareness, they tend to shut one and the other off, but you're the one who gets them to work together. So that's really fun. I saw someone have a post of the ego self and the higher self. I just call this the ego and this the self, but everyone can use what they're more comfortable with. Number 2, open awareness. Yes, so open awareness, you can have awareness if you're comfortable being vulnerable. So the girl, I believe it was the girl, I told her, I said to the date thing on subreddit, I said, it's not a no, because she's like, I don't think I should go out with him at all anymore. It's like, I don't think it's a no per se. I just think you're both very vulnerable. You had a great conversation and you're still quite sensitive in a way of, it's normal, 25-year-old. So you can actually build some emotional maturity by having those deep, vulnerable conversations. Of course, it's going to be uncomfortable and a bit tiresome. Now, if that persisted, at that point, I'd be like, okay, you want to go check out an attachment category, not style. I'd go to an attachment category, do EMDR, chart parts, work somatics, because you can't use your nervous system. It will, if you're drained again and again, then I'm going to know that because unhealthy boundaries, porelessness boundaries, I believe is the term that Terrell uses. It's person is going to be tending with their physiology to another, and that's from the ambivalent attachment category that I'm thinking about. And so, yeah, it's obvious. If it continues, I would say that's a pattern that you want to note, and then you want to get help for that, undo the pattern. Like Dr. Mia Pegan points out, you undo it, then eventually you're going to get to good resilience. So that, for example, a person like that, they won't feel what are those 5 elements that I mentioned for when you don't lose yourself as an adolescent. In college, I was doing great. I met a bunch of people who were miserable and fucking, and I'm like, don't do it, STDs. So when I think of people who don't know how to be themselves because they don't have a whole self, they don't have their identity and belonging, I'm reminded every step of the way, I never have gone through any of these insecure, emotionally vulnerable with the I'm afraid. There's never been fear. There's not fear to relate to another. And so no one has ever silenced me, nor could they ever, unless I'm like, hey, you need to be quiet. Okay, I'm sorry, that's where obviously, but I'm saying like in a presence, or if someone's actually in a sympathetic, probably. If they're like really, then I would be silenced because I'll be afraid. But other than that, I won't be silent. Someone saying, you're really loud, Maria. I was like, yeah. Do you want to speak up? Because I can speak up really good. That's how I'll interact with someone who is actually going to try and say something. So 2, when things go wrong, things can always go wrong, but they can also go right. 3, you don't struggle with feelings. 4, no one is out to get you or us. And then 5, we are broken free from affective realism. So strong emotions don't feel like facts. You're activated, you'll become aware, you'll talk about it. And so since you were a child, teenager, adolescent, grown human being, grown, it gets easier and easier, and you have more fun. And number 3 pillar of mind training, actually, this is kind intention. So this is comparable to mindfulness training and loving kindness, or to overall mindfulness. And I'm going to allow myself to say I've been doing mindfulness and mind training since I was a kid. I didn't really realize I'm training myself because I don't feel like I'm a monkey. So the inner authority in you, that's the other part. You're going to have fun with it because you're in your own head. You're in your own head and you're not having an uncomfortable time because you're safe. You're safe within yourself. And so when you don't lose yourself ever, since you were born, or since whenever it is you regained yourself, okay, if you have regained yourself, you went through all the steps, you even went through resilience program, and you're finally like, yes, I'm ready to be curious with all of my emotional stuff. You're going to have a good time here, and you're going to know what I'm talking about. And then you're probably going to have different perspectives about how it worked for you before you moved into becoming and actually finding your real self. Because that's the part of what is amazing, is that the people who are finding their self, their identity and belonging, and now they can work with their personality patterns, and they can work with their nervous system regulation, and they're choosing to regulate in the securely attached mode. They're not finding it boring. They're not saying, I want to stay in my defense position and use the adrenaline, the very not awesome, regulated depth and intensity. So people will think that visceral, which is a defense mode, is more appealing than that which is a connection that comes from the heart and safety. And those people who speak in this way are yet to be whole, which is why not all are in that enlightenment. So age group, if I am going to bring in from the embodied lived experience, or I could say are embodying the blissed out state. You can maintain the blissed out state if you want. And I could easily do it with the flow state because I own this brain of mine. Of course, events are taking place outside of us, and then we have our human species, and we all will be co-regulating with each other because we're a species. But you will learn how to differentiate, and as you learn differentiation, I do it all the time, you consistently grow your sphere. Here's where that light body and ascension, which is why you're not reprogramming your subconscious, but this is where I bring the human elements, the spiritual and spirituality elements. So I try to bring in what I learned from all my courses. So when you're restorative embodiment and you're living that, and therefore you're doing the resilience that is of the I'm embodying blissfulness, you don't have courage or strength anymore. At a certain point, you simply have curiosity, and whenever something is, I'm activated, oh wait, oh yeah, that's the shit I was dealing with when I was an 11-year-old. Oh great, thank you so much. And then for me, through my community, besides the mindset practices and also journaling, I get to continue growing with you. And I use myself because there's an example of a human in front of you. But I continue to also try bringing in those examples of those who I have noticed don't understand and say, no, it's not like that. It's not like that for you. It is like that for those of us who didn't lose ourselves, because we have the higher self in the lead with the ego. They're not against each other. My brain doesn't have inner fights. It has nothing at all of that sort. It has, let's go find out information. Oh, look, this is fun. Oh, look, those people are fun. Oh, look, hey, yeah, I do see corruption out there. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, it's what corrupts leadership and people, not power, not their position. No, not manipulation or lies, not consciousness, not dark energy, evil people. No, actually, they're weak. They don't have a strong sense of self. They got dysregulated as kids, and then they continued with ancient news. So when people actually hear this, they're like thinking I'm trying to soften and or make up excuses for people. But when I look at from one person to all 8 billion, everyone's an embodied brain. And as I do enjoy being grounded in reality, I will know that every person began the same way I did. So I don't need a monster, not to mention God made us perfect in the spiritual stuff. But let me put that to the side just for a second and just say science. All of that which has explained to me how we work. And so when someone spots pathologies easily, it's because you'll be like, oh, there's one who could do more, there's one, and that's the part of where there are those who will not want to move into curiosity, because what motivates you to, let's see, hold on, where's my, I lost my paper, but I had a question that was a good one for those of you who might want to ask it. And it was something about, shoot, I just had it in front of me. It was about, give me 1 minute. I forgot the words because I got distracted by whoever it is that buzzed us. But when you have a moment where you're reactive inside, you've been activated, and you're not destabilized to the point of where you lose yourself, but you are instead able to stay centered, you're going to have the capacity to notice what's going on in your thoughts, what's going on in your body. You don't have any kind of calculative story, but see, this is, I can't understand a mind that came with an inner critic and an outer critic. I can understand it from the explanations that I've been given. And that's the part of why when someone doesn't like that, I will explain, look, all people are humans. They all came to be the same way we did. So you wanting to tell me that there's corrupt and evil, and I know all about it. I've done papers, I have research, but again, with every single bit of attachment science, they're made like we are. So that's it. There's no need for me to, even when I look from the spiritual perspective and consciousness, so some will bring that angle and I'll say, yes, you do realize, oh, I forgot to mention, I've seen cosmic karmic balancing take place. So I've seen when someone puts out shit, what comes back around? Shit. And so this is where it's proof I've seen. I don't need to prove it to anybody else, but it's also a subjective experience, right? So when someone's looking out there in the world and they're wanting to give me their picture, I'm like, I accept your picture. I also know what I'm seeing. And I also know what answers I have and why. And this is the part of where we can have a nice conversation. But those who just want to box it all up and make it, oh, these are all the bad people. It's like, well, yeah, there's bad and good everywhere. But do you notice who they are? So watch Ice Age, Diego's family. Toxic people, people who need good therapists. So pathologies, it's not even funny how easy it is to notice that they all, between gaslighting, manipulating, the codependent type, I forget all the verbiology from the lovely educators, but it's not something that will continue into the future because the children always surpass our elders. So our elders give us some knowledge, then we learn new knowledge, and this is the beauty of continuing as a species to evolve, and it's why also continuing to believe in the capacity for us to make a difference. Grounded in reality, people. We know science is true, whether you believe in it or not. We also know beliefs are personal and subjective, and that objective truths continue to build, and that we don't necessarily have the capacity to communicate them clearly to those who are on a story, and that's where the distortion comes for them. So for me, I'm going to pose one last question, then we're going to go. But when you have a steady self, so since as a kid, as I grew up, I didn't lose me. I didn't lose my relationship with God or Jesus, who taught me, forgive Maria, for they do not know. Stephen Porges confirms what biologically rude people don't know. They don't know what they're doing because they're leading from their 0-8 non-metabolized trauma time. Terria will have explained what subjective reality is. I will let you know that as a kid I already knew that. When I went to ask my friends, the second cheating incident of my boyfriend at the time, why none of them told me, they all had explanations. And that's not a justification. They all explained to me their subjective experience and why. To invalidate that would be to invalidate their life's experience. So when you're whole, you didn't lose your identity, you didn't lose your belonging, you don't actually have confusion when you get explained how embodied brains are. And so that attachment trauma lens and the polyvagal lens and all of the lenses that I say sciences bring to us, which is why every person has a heart. They're all angels and they all can achieve their connectedness, but that's if they want it. And so what do I close my mind off from? I close myself off to that evil word. Where does rigidity come up? But I don't get rigid about it. I just say, I know that in every human being in flesh, there's a soul, there's a person, and they came from somewhere. And I can understand that if they lost their way, they were set up to fail. And I know where to point that. But parents and all of our ancestors always did the best they can. So do us. And sometimes the best is not good enough, but that's not what I'm going to say in so you need to do better, because that's actually a pompous asshole, by the way. Doing the best and being able to understand what the best is, and then being able to provide a way proactive solution, and there are proactive solutions to supporting people to get to become the best version of themselves. But being able to accept that emotionally immature, dysregulated human beings don't know the difference. They can't become self-aware unless they choose to notice they have a problem. So this is the part of where the emotionally mature ones we can forgive for many different reasons, because we can process the charge and we can use logic and heart to say, we know we can make mistakes. As Terrio points out, what I was trying to say before, you will be seen as crooked by someone out there. Like crooked. I'm judged as a mystic by a bunch of people as crooked and more. If you're a grown human being, you put your hand here and say, I know that. It's okay. I didn't break any laws. I continue to vote and do what I can, and we continue to talk about important topics, and we can continue to talk with the equanimous, discerning, and loving tone like God talks to me. FYI, if you're curious, I'm the co-author of the book, The Ways to God. You can read a little bit about me And I do have plans for another ebook at a short, hopefully, I'm thinking stuff up in my mind right now. It's been in the last couple of days. So this is like a little hint of an announcement. But as we conclude, what can I accept as part of this world that I don't like? I can accept that there are emotionally immature, epistemically lazy, dysregulated human beings who are distorting reality, not only with themselves, but also around there. But hey, we have a group out there, they don't take their children to the hospital. And we respect that because that's their belief system. And then actually they think all of us are going to be going to hell soon or something like that, because that's exactly how they're reading that book. And so, it's, let me think, do I want children to die? No, I don't. So the minute you are completely disconnected from that which is objective truths, and you've made up some reason why, anybody who's grounded in reality, especially those who they can stay within themselves, it's not about belief or not belief. It's what works for our human species is that we actively have a number of smart individuals out there who continue to grow. And the spiritual bypassers and somatic bypassers, they're not. But I can accept that they did not get that which was a good foundation. And so with their distortion, they gravitate and navigate towards those who tell them what they want to hear. It's called validation loops. And so like the flat earthers, groups come together. And that's the part where I don't see there being a problem with manipulation and lies. I see that we have people who don't move beyond the I'm irritated and want to live that is right, that feels right, and that they forget we're living, yes, a subjective reality, because we know what objective truths are, but the reality that we see, societally speaking, is embodied by concrete individuals and groups. So definitions of that which would be a good society and a bad society, again, I'll bring the group that doesn't take their kids to the hospital. We say they have their belief, we're going to leave them alone. They look at us and they point a finger, and then when they send, I think it's their kids out, we gave you the option to choose our world or that world. In my opinion, you chose to tell them this is a good, no, you chose to raise them one way, and then you're just pretending to let them have an option. But is this for me to say, that's the part of where once you understand differences to the point of where it's not threatening your identity, it's not threatening your belonging, it's not threatening yourself, and it's not having you become activated in a way that you are dysregulated. So here, again, for those who are new and just joining, I have a master's degree in international relations and diplomacy. And I remember one of these activities we did in school for my classes, and it was where we were going to try and negotiate something. I kid you not, we all talked about peace on earth, and we didn't come to conclusion. I'm just saying. So when someone gives me a story and they add up a bunch of Hansel and Gretel, I know how that's built because I could do it too. Theologian went about their business making Reiki into bad energy because he decided, no, because he read books with the exact words. So this is the part of the left, and then being so honed in and then adding something up, just the way your mind is building it. Okay, so the difference for somebody who is able to discern is I will know who knowledgeable experts are, then I will know what wisdom sounds like, and then I will know what those who are distorting and bringing to me a story looks like. And when you see extremes, that's where they're at. When you see those who want to enlighten, you will find that they will have not lost themselves, or they will have found themselves, and it's a restored, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating person. So those who are here, thanks for stopping by. It is, with no further ado, now I'm going to repeat. So 5 things. If you grew up with yourself without losing yourself, or at some point, once you find yourself, you're going to feel that no one is ever telling you to be quiet, but you do know when it's best to be quiet because you know that, actually you don't get irritated to the point of where you would have to interject. Because if you do, reparenting is still part of the journey then. So no one can silence you, but you know when it's best to speak or not. In fact, Buddhist psychologists ask the question, if what you have to say will contribute to the situation, okay, but if you think it might not, and it's not always easy at the end of the day, but, one does the best they can to allow the situation to go smoothly, so to speak. When things go wrong, no one is to be blamed, meaning things can go wrong, because otherwise we could always create a story of why something's going wrong. I know there are friends and people like, you don't call me on purpose. You're trying to make me suffer. It's like, no. So that's where sentences, thoughts that come to the mind of you when we're projecting emotionally immature mannerisms and thoughts that come from insecurity. Number 3, you don't struggle in the way of those who suffer life. And so you will know, okay, I have emotions, like when I was a teenager, then when I was in my mid-20s, still now. The twin flame thing didn't change that. It just made it very, very fascinating. And you can pick up on all this energy and people. It's amazing. I kid you not. At one point, I was like, this is ridiculously wow. And that was after being able to look from the after to the past. And that's just like, it's as if you have the eyes to see what's going on in another person's life, but not the exact. Even though sometimes that can also happen, but I digress. 4, no one is out to get you. So yeah, we don't do conspiracies or any of that, but we understand when we're being given different stories. As again, everyone is going to be taken into consideration, since that's what it means to be a person who understands how it works. We don't know everything, so I might be completely wrong. Grounded in reality, and we're broken free from affective realism. So strong emotions, you work with them, you get curious, and you get to be back if you enjoyed. And thanks for stopping by. It was great to chit chat with you all, and to let you hear a little bit about how amazing it is to not lose yourself as you grow up, and then to also move into mysticism and examples of integration of the brain in the restorative embodiment. We'll be back again with more at some other point. Thanks again.